So the Switch 2 countdown continues. We are closing in on the 2-week wait for the release of Nintendo's next generation console, which is crazy exciting, and that also means that we're waiting for their next big game to release, which of course is Mario Kart World, the killer app launch title for the console. Now in my last video, I spent a lot of time talking about Mario Kart as the launch title for the console, as well as the rest of what we know about the launch year for the Switch 2, even though we know there are plenty of other surprises we're still waiting for. Based on everything we do know, there's a lot of great titles releasing essentially in the first 6 months of the Switch 2's life, when you consider that Pokemon and Metroid Prime 4 we know have 2025 dates. It's going to be a great start to this machine. Now, what I want to do in this video is focus more on how we're all going to be spending our time playing the Switch 2 on day one. Which for most of us, who are at least getting it on day one, on June 5th, that's going to be Mario Kart World. And again, I discussed it in my last video. I'm sure I will continue to touch on it in this video. The game is going to be amazing. I can't stress it enough. I think that Mario Kart World is going to be an amazing 10 out of 10 Mario Kart experience. But, as I've mentioned in the past, I feel like launching your console with a racing and a multiplayer-focused title, even with the large open-world single-player component, it's still a multiplayer-focused and an online-focused game. I feel like launching your console with a game like that, just speaking for me, is a little bit less exciting than launching with something like Donkey Kong Bananza. And so, yes, this video and this very long intro was just a long way for me to say that Donkey Kong Bananza is the game that I wish was the launch title for the Nintendo Switch 2, because it is a gigantic Nintendo-made platforming adventure, using their oldest and one of their most famous IPs and mascots. We all love Donkey Kong as a character. We love the Donkey Kong games. We haven't seen a 3D Donkey Kong game since the Nintendo 64. This is only the second one ever made. And so this game has me so freaking excited. And I wish that this gigantic adventure, this huge single-player focused adventure platforming game, was how I was going to be able to enjoy the launch day of the Switch 2. I kind of liken this philosophy to how we saw Nintendo launch the Nintendo 64, how we saw them launch the Nintendo Wii, and how we saw them launch the Nintendo Switch. Because, as I discussed, launching the 64 with Mario 64 was incredible. Now, that was a console that in the States only launched with 2 games. Both were Nintendo games, Mario 64 and Pilotwings 64. But Mario 64 turned the gaming world on its head. The game is incredible, 10 out of 10, changed 3D gaming forever. And in my opinion is the best launch game ever made, and is one of the top 10 best video games ever created. And when that console came out, I myself was 16 when the Nintendo 64 released. So when I was 16 years old and I got this hot, brand new, insanely high-tech Nintendo 64 console, being able to play in that gigantic Mario world for weeks and weeks on end just felt like magic. Now, if we skip ahead to the Nintendo Wii in 2006, we had a brand new gargantuan Zelda adventure to play, the return to a quote-unquote realistic art style, with Zelda Twilight Princess, and the Wii version being so spectacular because the motion controls for using your bow and arrow and your slingshot are fantastic, and it was certainly fun to use the motion to swing Link's sword. It wasn't the same as like a one-to-one kind of motion, but you know, it was gimmicky but still fun. The game was beautiful, and it just was something that people were so excited for, and that game is massive. So, along comes Nintendo's other new generation console at the time, the Wii, promising this crazy revolution of motion controls, and we got to spend our first weeks and months of that generation with this incredible, huge, single-player Zelda adventure, and that was a very, very magical time for those of us who experienced it. And then, of course, we'll skip ahead to 2017 with a game that needs no introduction. It's another Zelda game, Breath of the Wild, launching the Nintendo Switch, and yes, it launched day and date with the Wii U version, unlike Twilight Princess, where the Wii version actually beat the GameCube release by either a couple of weeks or a couple of months, I can't remember. But the Wii version was the one they released before the GameCube version. With Breath of the Wild, it was day and date for the last gen and the next gen console, but because 95% of us played that game for the first time on the Switch when we bought our Switches day one, it felt like a next-gen Zelda game experience. And again, just like Mario 64, just like Twilight Princess, it was a massive single-player adventure, and it felt, I mean, it sounds corny, but really, it did feel magical to spend the first 2 months of my time with this brand new hybrid Nintendo Switch machine, playing this gigantic and fantastic Zelda game in the coolest and largest Hyrule world we'd ever experienced at the time. And I really felt like I was a kid again, playing Breath of the Wild on a brand new machine. And keep in mind, I was 36, almost 37 when the Switch and Breath of the Wild released. So it's not like I was a kid. I was in my mid-30s. I was encroaching my late 30s at the time. And playing Breath of the Wild alongside a brand new machine day one really felt like a next-generation experience. It was magical, and it kept me enamored for months on end. And so, when we now fast forward again to the Nintendo Switch 2, we know that we're getting Mario Kart World as the day one game, and as I've said many times, the game is going to be amazing. I have nothing negative to say about Mario Kart World as a game. The only thing I want to double down on is that I wish the launch day experience for my next generation Nintendo console wasn't just a racing and a multiplayer and an online focused experience. A month after the Switch 2 and Mario Kart releases, we get Donkey Kong Bananza. And as I've let you guys know several times, that is a game experience that really speaks to me. I love Donkey Kong, I love platformers, I love adventure games. Yes, open world is very, very tired at this point in terms of game design, but I still like a good open world game. You give me a Donkey Kong open world game, I am sold, man. I look at that title, the trailers, the treehouse footage, everything we've seen, and it just gets me so excited. And I know not everyone is totally sold on Donkey Kong Bananza yet, which makes me very sad, but I personally am sold on it. It looks amazing, and when I go back through the history of Nintendo consoles like I just did, playing Mario 64, playing Twilight Princess, I'll even throw in Luigi's Mansion for the GameCube, because that was a great game. A very short, simple game, but a great way to play the GameCube, and it was new. And then Breath of the Wild for the Switch. It's like, I wish that I had the Donkey Kong adventure to play day one with my Switch 2, as opposed to the racing Mario Kart adventure. Now, one thing I do want to mention in this video before I wrap up, though, is that when we look at it from a business perspective, not from my opinion, not from Rob's preference kind of perspective, but from the business perspective, from Nintendo's money and revenue generating perspective, clearly Mario Kart is the smarter game to launch with, okay? So I can separate both my preference as a game fan and what makes sense for the business. And between the two, obviously, Mario Kart is going to be more popular, more successful. It's probably going to review even better than Donkey Kong, more than likely. Maybe I'm wrong on that, I guess, but I'm predicting Mario Kart will be critically more well-received than Donkey Kong will. And probably even a lot of game fans are going to prefer it. So when you think about the stronger title from that lens to launch a new console, I understand why it's Mario Kart. And again, because I know the game is still going to be amazing, I'm not super sad about it. And it's also worth noting, I've mentioned this in several videos in the past as well, we only have a month to wait anyway, so I'm a pretty patient guy. Even though I'm sad my first next-gen Nintendo experience won't be with this massive Donkey Kong adventure, I only have, 5 or so weeks to go until Donkey Kong comes out. That's a nice wait. Give me a month playing Mario Kart on the Switch 2, and I'll probably replay Cyberpunk. I love Cyberpunk. I've beaten it on the PS5 a few times. I'm going to play it again on the Switch 2. That's going to be great. But it's mostly Mario Kart until, 5 weeks later, I'm going to get the Donkey Kong game that I'm really excited for. It even releases the day after my birthday anyway. So I'm not, crying about this necessarily, but I did want to spend time in this video talking about why I understand that Mario Kart is the launch title, but I am a bit sad that I don't get the big Donkey Kong experience day one instead. So admittedly, I don't know how other people will react to this concept. People as old as me who maybe got to experience the 64 and the GameCube and the Wii and the Wii U and the Switch all on launch day, maybe you can understand what I'm saying a little bit more. for people who maybe haven't been gaming this long, or even people who are too young to have experienced those older consoles on day one, maybe you're not worried about it and you don't feel like you need a big adventure on day one. You're fine with the multiplayer online Mario Kart experience day one. There really is no wrong answer, because in my opinion, we have two amazing Nintendo-made games in the first 5 or 6 weeks of this console's life. So there's no lose, it's only a win-win, but I will be curious to see who out there thinks that Mario Kart is the more exciting game, and who out there feels like I do and would have preferred Donkey Kong to have been the launch game, and maybe Mario Kart releases a few weeks after the fact, right? So again, and I'm not even talking about the business side. The business side says Mario Kart was the correct game, so none of you need to tell me that. I know it. I've said it in this video. But again, as far as your guys' preferences, I'll be curious to see which of you prefers one versus which of you prefers the other. So at the end of the day, 2 great games in the first month. Can't complain about that. Switch 2, it's coming soon. 2.5 weeks away, man. I cannot freaking wait. So these are my thoughts. Talk about what you think below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.